Finally, we have a decent winter in Finland again. Lots of snow and very cold temperatures. This old-fashioned winter inspired me to pack my backpack and go a little trip. But not just for the joy of hiking, but also with a small task in my mind. Because in my backpack I happen to have a total new type of 360 device. And my purpose is to test its 3D scanning capabilities in this very cold weather. Hello, it's me, Olli, here again. This time, at the risk of even a slight frostbite, I decided to go outside to test this interesting new device. I'm pretty sure that if you've been following the development of technology and various cameras recently on social media, or especially on YouTube, you may have came across numerous reviews and demonstrations of this new 360 drone, which is also known as the Antigravity A1. Its fly first and frame later philosophy is particularly suitable for all kind of a content creation, where you want to create extremely good looking shots and exciting angles without any worries. And 360 video shooting technology is perfect for that, because the device records everything around you. You don't have to worry about whether you manage to get the desired object in the frame at the time of shooting. Everything can be repositioned and reframed later on the editing table, and you can choose what you want to show in the image. While all this is really great and opens up a lot of new production possibilities for content creators, my perspective on this device is a bit different, and it might give this drone even more interesting use cases. Because if you have been following my channel, you may already know about my experience with 360 cameras and how they can be used in 3D environment scanning, and especially in creating Gaussian splatting models. All of this has given me a good practical workflow on how 360 cameras can be used to produce 3D models. And since Antigravity is essentially just a 360 camera that flies, it should be quite easy to apply this same workflow to it as well. But first I had to learn how to fly it, and it felt a bit challenging at first because this type of drone is designed to use a completely different control system than other drones. First of all, we have these special vision goggles. This isn't anything new to me. I have been flying different drones since 2013, and I have already tested different FPV headsets, wearable displays and head tracking systems in the very early stages. But anti-gravity seems to be really the technology where all this works as it should. I was quite amazed how responsive the head tracking was, and how fluently the 360 view turns and reveals its surroundings when you turn your head with the goggles. It really puts you in the position of the drone, and you will see the world from that angle. And then there is this controller. This special joystick or grip motion controller, as they have named it, makes you first miss the traditional PlayStation-style controller where all movement is controlled by two sticks. But even then, the situation quickly turns the other way around. This special handheld 3D mouse is no different than other VR controllers and actually works very naturally when you just start flying with it. So after I have made my first maiden flight with the A1, I was very convinced of its features and especially how easy it was to fly. And so all of this brings us to this situation now, to this place where my purpose is to scan This very interesting area, and particularly this ski jumping tower, located in Hervanta district of Tampere. It's great that the Vision goggles has this screen recording feature, so I can show what I saw during the flight. So, as mentioned, although the anti-gravity drone is easy to fly and I can just point the direction where I want to go, I found that from a scanning perspective and also from my intuition perspective, the so-called FPV mode is the most natural way to control the drone. The FPV mode must be turned on separately in the drone's menu, and it means that you can easily turn the drone direction just by tilting the controller from side to side. This creates a much more practical flight simulator feeling, and this immediately suited my own controller style better. But in addition to this, I wanted to test and utilize also the automatic Sky Genie functions that are programmed into the drone. From these 8 different pre-programmed aerial movements, I found this basic orbit rotation named arc shot to be the most useful thing for 3D scanning. When Sky Genie function is activated, you are supposed to drag a selection rectangle on the area you want the drone to fly around. Then in the settings you can choose whether the drone will fly clockwise or counterclockwise and how much speed the drone will use for the movement. Overall, mastering this arc shot movement took a little bit of time to learn since the controller has these C1 and C2 buttons placed above and below the thumb, and finding these was a bit challenging, especially when wearing thick winter clothes. Choosing the center point with the rectangle didn't always place the selected area, and it was often a bit off. When the process was triggered, it was nice to notice how easy everything is. The device automatically starts video recording at the beginning of the round and stops it when the round ends. So this is a perfect and very easy way to perform object-centric scans in the air. So I ended up to use the arc shot function to do more laps around the ski jumping tower area from a bit further away, and then I flew over the area from different heights by crisscrossing. And of course I couldn't resist trying to dive down the hill like the popular Finnish ski jumper Matti Nykänen used to do. This was very easy, and the anti-gravity control system gave me the confidence to try this maneuver. But of course I had to keep my eye on battery percents, because this kind of a frost could drain them very quickly, but they still lasted surprisingly long. I was able to fly on one battery a bit over 12 minutes, which is in my opinion a decent amount for this kind of a weather, and it gave me enough time to do various scanning rounds. Of course, the system did warn me about the cold weather, and a message like this appeared on the goggle screen a couple of times. Eventually I ended up flying out 2 batteries, and in that moment I was starting to feel pretty cold myself, so I decided that I had enough scanning material. And since I didn't want to freeze my feet here any longer, so it was time to go home. So this brings us to the interesting post-processing phase then. When I got back to my work desk, I exported the footage out from the drone's SD card and opened the video files in Antigravity Studio program. Since Antigravity is a separate company incubated by Insta360, it naturally uses the same file types and softwares as the popular Insta360 cameras do. So if you have earlier already used the Insta360 Studio desktop program, you won't notice much of a difference between these two, except for the slightly changed colors of the user interface. They are almost identical to each other. So it doesn't really matter which software you use to process your 360 footages. Antigravity Studio has a few presets that are designed specially for aerial 360 material. But for my own 3D scanning method, this doesn't really matter because the idea is just to look through the footages and export them out as a full equirectangular 360 videos. At this point, it's good to analyze a little what aerial videos looks like and what they actually contain. When we generally look at the aerial footages where we have flown fairly high altitude, above tree lines, we notice that they all have in common that almost half of the image area is just a pure blue sky. There is hardly anything happening in this part of the image. All the interesting and important movement happens in the lower part of the image area. Therefore, when I next import these videos into Blender and use the 360 extractor add-on that I have developed, I already know that I shouldn't create camera groups that point towards the sky. So after a little thinking, I ended up building a camera rig, which is like a half dome that collects the most important images only from the lower parts of the aerial footages. This setup has a total of only 13 cameras in 3 separate camera groups. First, there is these traditional groups of 8 cameras, each of which points to the so-called compass directions. Each of them is set to 90-degree FOV value so that we get enough overlap for each images. And the amount of sky that is seen in these images is enough. The second camera group has only 4 cameras that points downwards at the angle of minus 35 degrees. And then there is only 1 camera that is the lowest one that points straight downwards. So finally in Blender I ended up extracting and rendering a total of 1431 images from the original 360 videos. And I think this was a suitable and well-optimized number of source images that were then ready to be processed into a 3D point cloud. Because I have already learned that the reality scan does not succeed very well in solving the structure from motion phase from images like these, it always ends up making too many components that would take too long to combine manually. Therefore, it is just better to drag these images directly into the post-shot program. And even though post-shot thinks and processes these images for a long time, it has proven to produce a better result than the reality scan. It managed to sort out a placement for every single one of those source images. So the success rate for this kind of a task is remarkably high. The process took a little bit over 11 hours to be completed on my average PC. The end result, in my opinion, is pretty good and high quality 3D Gaussian splatting model. I especially like how the morning light was captured in this winter landscape. Naturally, Gaussian models always have these floating artifacts, and I was quite surprised that there weren't any more of them. The original images had these light flares that were coming from the sun, but it turned out that they didn't cause any major problem in the end result. These type of floaters is pretty easy to remove in SuperSplat application, and I have found a good technique for that. By isolating a selected area and using separation feature, we are able to paint and pick up unnecessary points and this way clean up and get rid of these annoying floaters. If you are interested in this, drop a comment below. I might do a separate tutorial about this cleaning process later. But now that we have a nice digital twin and decent Gaussian splatting model of this ski jump tower area, we can think about what we learned from this process. The Antigravity is a great little drone that is fun to fly. It is well suited for these kind of 3D scanning tasks. Since it produces a clean 360 videos, you don't have to worry about having to remove yourself out from the images like you would have when shooting on the ground level with a standalone camera and a selfie stick. The 8K video is good enough for this workflow and works well with my 360 extractor tool. The only strange thing that I noticed is that if you take still images with the drone, the metadata doesn't include location and GPS data. The EXIF block of single images does not include standard location data like other images that were taken with a device that has a GPS. This is a bit strange because drone flying is based heavily on GPS positioning, and it is very typical that the information obtained from telemetry is also saved inside the images. On the video side, this does work, and you can even use various different kind of meters and gauge graphics on top of the video in the Antigravity Studio program. So the location data is definitely in there, but for some reason this information is not available in still images. And location information would make it easier to create a point cloud, especially in programs like Reality Scan, and if we could utilize it properly, the 3D creation process could be even faster. However, I believe that this can be fixed in future updates. Antigravity is still a very new device, and ever since I had it in use, a few firmware updates have already been released for it. Therefore, I strongly believe that this shortcoming can also be corrected later. Okay, I have now shown the 3D workflow and how the Antigravity drone can be used in it. If you want to check out and see what the final result look like, I have uploaded the Gaussian model to the Supersplat gallery. You can test and rotate it in there. The link to it is in the description. And if you are interested in my 360 extractor tool for Blender, you can find it in my Gumroad online store. By the way, I have also added that camera group template that I used in this video in there. It makes the extraction work from Antigravity footage more easier. I really like this 360 drone, and I want to thank Antigravity for making it. I'll continue flying it, and maybe I could next investigate how it plays indoors, and if it can be used for scanning interior models. But until then, thanks for watching.